So I will hit record, and I will continue to roast Mike. Oh my god, hey Mike, you remember that beard oil sample that smelled like patchouli?
Um, yes. I think it was also supposed to be like a pine or something, some kind of woodsy thing. But yes, I do remember.
Yeah,
There was another one that had more like orange and clove in it that was much better.
yeah, I remember Renee and I got into a discussion recently about smelling like a hippie, and I was like, "Oh my god, we got a sponsorship deal the one time we got one, outside of Card Shark."
Hmm.
And the dude made beard oil, and he sent us samples. So I gave it to Mike because Mike has, the glorious beard to
It's true.
try out. And there was one that he really liked, and one that he said he was kind of ashamed or embarrassed to wear in public because it had like a patchouli scent to it, and he didn't want to smell like a dirty hippie. And they was like, "Yep."
Accurate.
I think it was Ashley who pointed out that it also kind of smelled like wood chips.
So you smell like a hippie in the garden.
A hippie ent.
A
I don't know.
hippie.
What's his name? Treebeard? You're more like
Heyo.
beard tree.
Oh, that's terrible. But with that, that's good filler. So here we go. Now jam. Hello everyone and welcome to the Mana Pool. This is apparently episode 719 of the Mana Pool. And I am apparently Chewy.
Apparently.
Apparently. I didn't put a number on the last one when I uploaded it, so I was confused for a second. Now it's got one. Hello. I'm the guy that records things and streams things and may or may not be wearing pants right this second. You'll never know, and I'll never tell.
I didn't check, so I have no idea.
So I got these other guys here. They also may or may not be wearing pants.
I'm not wearing any pants.
Wow.
Dirk's literally just laying it all out there for us.
Yeah, he really is.
How
I'm
do you
Brian.
quiet Brian? Not wearing pants.
You finally done it. You madman. You blew it up. I'm Brian. I'm here. I'm wearing pants. I got nothing else. Mike?
I'm here. I'm Mike. I'm wearing pants. I'm wearing some workout pants.
Does workout pants just mean lazy pants?
No, I got back from a long walk. That was the errand I had to run, taking my walk while it was still light out since I had the opportunity.
That's not an errand.
Yes, it is. It's something I had to do today.
All right.
And I'm Dirk, the self-proclaimed greenest man alive and moral compass of the group. I actually am wearing pants.
Oh my god, I
was
feel so
wanting to see what
betrayed.
everyone else was going to say.
Well, congratulations.
I feel
That's right.
so betrayed. I was all happy that Dirk was honest about this pantslessness. Is pantslessness a status effect?
I think it is, yes.
Huh. Well, we'll hold on to that. Quick reminder here at the very beginning of the show. Next week, possibly this week, depending on when I manage to get this episode out, is Chivos for Charity 2025 charity stream. That's the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So it's here for those of you listening to this not live. It's here. It's happening. Oh God, it's happening. I'll be streaming from noon to midnight all 3 days, raising money for Trans Lifeline and giving away Steam games. I've got a massive list of achievements. We're going to spin the wheel. It'll randomly pick an achievement, and I'll try to get it. And then people will donate money. And let's see, your first $10 gets you a game off of the spreadsheet. There's over 1,000 games on the spreadsheet. It's completely ridiculous. Your first... Wait a minute. Sorry, I just realized
Problems?
that Ben had bought like a bundle, and it had a game in it that he already had, and he was like, "I'll send it to you." And I have no idea where it went. I need to figure that out and put it on the spreadsheet. Anyway, sorry about that. Well, I don't know why that popped into my head right then, but it did. Okay, what was I? Right, your first $10 gets you a game off the spreadsheet, and every $10, including your first one, gets you a raffle entry. And every time I achieve an achievement or we hit a financial milestone, which is every $100, and what's the other thing? Every hour. There we go. I will do a pull, like a random selection of raffle ticket things, and whoever gets pulled gets another free game. So if you drop $100, then you get 10 entries and one free game automatically.
Nice.
And once you get pulled, that entry gets deleted, but your other 9 are still there. So yes, come get free games. They're Steam games by and large. There are a small handful that aren't on Steam, but they're Steam games.
And what are the hours for this again?
Noon to midnight, Eastern time.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, 12 to 12.
Awesome.
And hopefully these dorks, or at least 2 of them, will still swing by at some point during all that. And I'll try to get Mom to come by. Everybody remembers Chewie's mom, right? Try to get Scott to come by, my old roommate. See if I can get Bill and or Clues on a call at some point to keep me company. It's going to be a blast. Last year was way too much fun, and Okay, hang on. I've got it right here. Last year, I got... Let's see, we raised $1,300, just over it. I achieved 34 Chivos and gave away around 70 games. I sort of forgot to get an exact count. So hopefully this year we can just crush all those numbers because I've added an extra 12-hour day. So yeah, hell yeah.
Awesome.
So it's going to be on twitch.tv/themanapool, the same place that we stream the podcast every Thursday. Hey, and the same place where I stream other stuff all the time. Currently streaming Final Fantasy VI. Hey. So yes, come hang out. You have to be present to win a drawing. So, there's that. Bogart said, "I don't think I ever claimed the game I won." Uh-oh. You should probably punch in that code at some point. Because it's been a year now.
Yeah.
But all right. That's that. Come hang out. I'll be, like I said, I'll be going for a very long time, and we'll have a good old time. And then by the end of the day, at the end of Sunday, I will be dead and just sitting here croaking. Thanks everybody so much. And it'll be great. Mom found a big ass bag of Ricola that she's gonna give to me. I'm gonna buy some smoothie things. I think there's still some hot chocolate because I don't do hot tea. I would rather, die than drink hot tea, but hot chocolate I can do. And it doesn't help as much, but it's still a warm liquid,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hot tea. That's disgusting. That's my hot take. Hot tea is gross. Hot liquids, by and large, are gross. I don't drink coffee either. Come at me. There we go. See, now come to the charity stream to yell at me about that. Yeah. Also, Nazis are made to be punched. There.
There you go.
Come yell at me about that. Anyway. Right. On with the show. So Brian,
That's
as
me.
usual, came up with an idea. And this time I didn't go, what?
No.
I think I
you
did
got it.
that with the last one you came up with. I was like, what?
You did.
I really
So-
need to go back through our texts.
Picture a young Brian. And for those of you that have never met me, make sure I'm really handsome, rugged in your imagination. But young Brian is sitting down playing Final Fantasy 2/4 for the first time. Let's be clear, it's 4. And you're going along. You're like, I get this game. I'm doing what I need to do. Sword guy goes whap, and magic person goes blah, and doing all right. And um, I get to a certain point in the game, and all of a sudden I hit an enemy, and I want to say it's the Magus sisters, and one of them casts a magic spell, and I'm used to magic. I'm like, okay, what's this one do? And all of a sudden one of my characters is dancing around back and forth, and there's a little green thing over their head. I'm like, what? And then they hit Cecil, like hits somebody, like Rosa, and kills her. Well, she wouldn't be in the game then, but hits Tella and kills him. I'm like, so now I'm losing my own turns, and my own person is hurting me. What the actual heck is going on? Man, this sucks. Welcome to status effects. So, you know them, sometimes you hate them, but there are games where maybe it's not a bad idea. I'm thinking like, hey, Final Fantasy VIII, for those of you that remember, you could like try to junction things to your characters, and maybe you slap some poison or some sleep or some instant death on your weapon, and so it's got a good chance of inflicting it. And then all of a sudden, hey, it's strategy. I'm not just repeatedly hitting X to pound people into the dirt. It's great. I'm thinking about it, and then they hit you, and you're like, man, this is bull. They hit you with a status effect, and you're like, oh, this is cheap. And then you do the same thing to them, and you're like, no, but when I do it, it's smart. So I think people have experiences when it comes to status effects, especially negative ones. So wanted to have a discussion about that. Wanted to talk about some of the most common ones, both in video games as well as how are they represented, if at all, in other games. I have a whole list of the conditions for 5th edition D&D, and I'm sure Mike can give us some more history with older editions for that. But they also exist in card games and things like that. So, I just want to talk about start off with some of the like most well-known. And I mean, all 4 of us, when you think of status element, 3, 2, 1,
Poison.
poison. There we go. So,
Confused.
well, yes, that too. But I knew that poison. My point was that poison would be the one that immediately comes to mind. I feel like in most video games, including Final Fantasy, it's a status ailment that once a character is afflicted with it, they lose life every turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting playing D&D with people because I think sometimes they have the same expectation, but in D&D, no. Poison does not hurt you. It does not cause you to lose life. The poisoned condition actually just means a poisoned character has disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks, which means it's essentially every time you try to do something like that, there's a equal chance, not equal, you roll to see if you succeed,
You're just
but
terrible at it.
you're terrible at it. Thank you, Mike. So the poison is going through your system, and you're not hurt, but you don't feel well. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. But anybody got any interesting takes on poison? Any funny stories? Anything like that? Wanted to go ahead and get this one out of the way, but
Poison is one of the reasons that the Marsh Cave in the original Final Fantasy is so awful, because like on the way there, everything has poison or can poison you, and on the way or while you're in there, half of the stuff in the Marsh Cave can poison you. And at this point, money is kind of tight, and you can't afford to buy 99 antidotes.
Yeah. That's a good point. So sometimes in games, status ailments will just go away on their own, and sometimes they won't. And I will also never forget the first time in Final Fantasy IV when I was playing again. Young me got poisoned in battle, and I'm like, well, I won. and I started walking, and I think it took 2 or 3 steps before I realized what was happening. And every time you took a step, like the background crunched up, and you heard that sound, and you're like, "What?" And then I was like, "Wait, no, no, oh no."
That was the signal
So
in Pokemon 2. The whole screen would flash, and you get that horrible noise.
does poison persist in Pokemon? Triple
Yes.
P. Persistent poison in Pokemon?
Yeah, it does. If you get poisoned in a battle when you exit it, it stays, and you have to either use an antidote or get to a Pokemon Center to heal whoever is poisoned. And if your last active Pokemon gets knocked out by poison while you're walking around, then you faint too.
Oh, and so it can knock him out. I know in some games in battle poison can kill you, but when you're walking around, it will only drop you as low as 1 hit point. So, but in Pokemon, wow, and in Pokemon, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a long time since Red and Blue, but random encounters like things in the tall grass don't give you money. Only battles with other trainers give you money, right?
Yep.
Yes, that's right.
So, oh, and antidotes aren't free. Poke centers are free, but antidotes are not.
So
Correct.
it's funny that you bring up Pokemon immediately because Jake in the Discord said Poison's history in Pokemon is interesting, and I was like, oh, how so? And this I'm gonna read this here. So if this is inaccurate, blame Jake. It's not me. From the
Right.
beginning, overworld movement would cost your Pokemon 1 HP if it was poisoned per tile moved, and would cause it to faint. In Generation 4, that's Diamond and Pearl, it changed so that it would no longer faint your Pokemon, stop at 1 HP remaining, but it would still be poisoned, so if you sent it into battle, it would faint at the end of turn. In recent generations, he thinks since Sword and Shield, poison as an overworld mechanic is basically dead, but it exists.
Basically dead, but it exists.
Yeah, I'm not entirely
Okay.
sure what that means.
I think he means it doesn't apply to the overworld, but it still exists in the battle.
Maybe?
Maybe that's what he means.
He said there's
When you
also a hidden toxic poison status that grows in effectiveness each turn. Regular poison is 1/16 per turn, no matter what. Toxic poison grows a fractional stage every time. So 1/16 to 1/8 to a quarter. Toxic
Ooh.
is referred to in game as badly poisoned. Oh. So there's poisoned, and then there's real poison.
Ooh. I mean, that kind
So-
of makes sense from a flavor perspective. Is like, it's getting more and more into your system or your Pokemon system. I don't know Pokemon biology, and it's getting worse and worse and worse as it spreads from the point of infection.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you learned about it pretty early in the games. Like, if a Weedle got you, you learned about poison real quick.
I haven't played Pokemon in generations. That's a literal, well, statement as far as Pokemon generations. But I've heard of this thing called Nuzlocke where hardcore players will, if a Pokemon faints, they will refuse to bring it back and they just trash it. And I imagine poisoned probably is not something that Nuzlocke players like.
If there's
No.
some kind of challenge mode.
Yeah, I think it's just a challenge you set for yourself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's,
I
it's
think.
a self-imposed challenge that has become standardized.
That's neat.
I mean, Pokemon by itself, especially again in the early days, wasn't hard. So,
Oh, Cardboard Samurai in the chat said, for clarification, poison goes away naturally once the Pokemon is at 1. Like
And
in
is that-
the modern day, is that what you mean?
that must be the modern ones. So, poison also exists in the Pokemon trading card game, and which actually has a couple. And Mike mentioned this prior to the show, so I want to make sure I brought the list. Sam used to play this game, never competitively, but before she started Magic and other stuff, she started out with Pokemon because they're cute and monsters, and then they evolve, and she beats me up with them. But it has a couple of like just standard status ailments, and at the top of the list is poison, and poison just means the Pokemon takes 10 damage during each Pokemon checkup, which I guess is the phase of the turn. I haven't played in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So
Mike's turn.
Just during Mike's turn. Oh, Mike's turn. Oh, I love it. Any other takes on poison? Any other funny stories? It's always kind of satisfying when you win the battle while poisoned at a low hit point. Just don't forget to heal. Go ahead, Mike.
I remember playing head-to-head Pokemon with my brother because he had red and he had blue, and sometimes, and each of us had a Game Boy, so sometimes we just play off of both his cartridges. And there was one time where I decided to see what it was like, just picking all the Pokemon I could find in his collection on that cartridge who could inflict status ailments. And I lost, but man, was he ever annoyed. So that made it worthwhile.
It's a moral victory.
Yeah.
I tried Pokemon. I was in high school when Pokemon really started to take off, and I had a Game Boy, so I got Red because that one had a dragon on it, and I played a couple things during lunch against other players, and every linked battle turned into Mewtwo. It just did. So that was kind of when there's one definitive Pokemon that's better than everything else. It's just like any other game. Like if you have a roster of fighters or whatever, and one is just better than the others, is unbalanced. Like if you could play M. Bison in Street Fighter 2, but like the final boss version with his damage modifiers and all that, you're gonna pick them. So then it became, what other 5 are you using? And then when do you bring him in terms of like trying to balance it against the others? But Mewtwo, for those that don't know, and this isn't really what we're talking about, but Mewtwo was broken. It was broken because of the way that stats worked. It was dumb in a really good but bad way.
Yeah, in the single player campaign, it's your reward for getting to the end of the game and catching him.
Wolfie mentions in the chat, I know you aren't taking suggestions, which is a lie. We will always take suggestions, but
Not
enraged comes to mind. I don't know, is is enraged like berserk or something, or confused for Pokemon?
He mentions timed enrage on bosses. Wolfie, do you mean like a character just like hulking out? Is that what you mean by enraged, or do you mean something like berserk?
Well, I mean, he capitalized it, so he must mean a specific mechanic in a game called enrage.
Is that for Pokemon?
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I don't think there was an enrage.
For it, and that just brings up rage, like the move. So,
with regards to poison.
Yeah.
I don't have a Pokemon one, but I very much have a memory from, I believe it was Final Fantasy IV.
Okay.
And that is in the underground, going to the Summoner Village. I'm pretty sure, at least if my memory serves me, when you're walking on your way to the village, that there were like these little pads that you walked on, and it would you would get hit with the poison.
They didn't,
even though you didn't have poison.
No, they were damaged floors. Yeah, damaged tiles on the floors.
Okay. Yeah.
But I very much remember that, and I believe some of the creatures down there also gave you poison.
Damage tiles have existed since basically forever. I remember in the original Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest, there were damage tiles that if you had the best armor, you would ignore the damage tiles. So,
was there also a swamp that had spaces that functioned like damage tiles in that game, in the first game?
In Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah. I think so. I think there were 2 levels of
and then there were the super damaging tiles later in the game that you had to have certain something on to not take stupid amounts of damage from them.
I'm trying to remember. I don't think status ailments other than sleep were in the original Dragon Quest. And sleep was because you only
sleep
ever
was so
controlled
brutal.
you only ever controlled one character. So, and sleep did not automatically end when the character was hurt. So, sleep was one, I guess if we're good with poison.
Yeah.
Sleep
Sleep is of the devil.
Sleep
That
is seen in different ways, and usually I think when you see in Final Fantasy, when it hits a character, if that character takes physical damage, they are woken up and they resume their time on the active battle turn meter thing, ATB. In Dragon Quest, when especially the original one, which is that one and then 11 are the ones that I have the most experience with, but because in 1 it was just you versus one monster at a time, sleep could actually be very effective if you could hit the monster with it, because then you could just wail on them and they might miss one turn or they might miss 5 or more. It was kind of random. But when the enemy hit you with sleep, you might as well just get up and walk away, because the same thing could happen to you. That's kind of getting back to what I was mentioning at the beginning of this, is they can feel status ailments can feel like such a pain in the butt, but sometimes when both you and the monster have a chance of it happening, it can be kind of an interesting equalizer. But I think sleep was the only status ailment. And let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. As far as death as a status ailment, instant death is one thing. Like, oh, and you die. And that's almost, I don't even know if I would consider a status ailment, because it's more like a triggered ability. It's just something that either happens or it doesn't, and then they're dead. Something being dead is not a status ailment, it's just a state of being. But yeah, so how is sleep represented in other stuff? Is there sleep in the Pokemon TCG I'm looking at now?
Yeah, it's implemented.
The Pokemon cannot attack or retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Which is identical to paralyzed. The Pokemon cannot attack or retreat. I guess it's a flavor thing.
Yeah, for some reason I thought there was something else about sleep in the card game.
This is what I'm finding online. I have not played in a long time, so certainly I know chat, hint hint, will correct me if I get something wrong.
So let's back this up a little bit.
Beep beep.
So, like, status effects, we could name individual ones literally all night.
Mm-hmm.
But status effects, the status ailments, negative status effects on you or your party, come in a variety of different flavors. We've talked about 2 already. There's poison, which is damage. Damage over time. There's poison, there's sap, there's being on fire, there's
It was interesting in Final Fantasy IV, spells like Bio, or ironically the final boss's Big Bang attack, would inflict sap, which works like poison but faster and can't be removed. So,
in some Legend of Zelda games, the drowning mechanic is basically a poison effect.
Huh.
Buh.
I don't know that I've ever really thought of it that way. What game in particular are you thinking of?
I'm thinking
that's the case.
Like the N64 ones, like Majora's Mask Ocarina of Time, where you lose hearts slowly.
Gotcha. Because they didn't have a stamina meter, so, if you're drowning, then, yeah. Take off the boots, Mike. Take off those damn iron boots.
Yeah, in Mario, in Mario 64, being underwater was essentially damage over time.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Interesting. But there's a lot of different ways to flavor it, but it's primarily just a reason to have your character take small amounts of damage, or maybe not small amounts of damage over time.
Yeah.
There's ones that affect your action economy, like sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're asleep, then you can't do something, and that's bad.
Yeah.
There's also oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say in the same thing, like if we want to consider slow, because slow affects your action economy because you take less turns compared to the opponent, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's slow and thinking in like I've been playing Final Fantasy VI, so thinking in Final Fantasy VI terms, there's slow and stop, and sleep, and even something like stone, which is technically dead, but you throw a gold needle at somebody, they're fine.
Well, and some games
Yeah.
have gradual petrify, right? So
Yeah.
it's a question of how far do I let this person get stoned before I call the cops? I mean, before I heal them. So, Mike, you
Yeah.
were gonna say something?
In that way, like sleep, stop, stone, paralysis, variations on the same thing. And slow is just like that, but on a sliding scale. You don't get to do as much. You don't get to use as many of your turns.
Right.
Then there's stuff that takes away your abilities. Like Wolfie in the chat mentioned silence, so you can't
Yep.
use magic.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Your healer gets hit with silence, and you're like, bleep.
Yeah, like and various games have all kinds of different reasons to take away some of your commands.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm
think
fairly certain I remember some RPG that inflicts people with I don't think it was called pacifism, but that's how my brain is remembering it, so that they can't attack.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
And in Final Fantasy Tactics, I don't think this is the same thing actually, but in Final Fantasy Tactics you can inflict an enemy with atheism.
With atheism? So they just are like,
atheism
screw
sets
you,
their
God,
faith
and they're
to 0, and faith is the main thing that governs how magic affects a given character.
oh
So if
wow.
you set their faith to 0, they won't take damage from magic attacks anymore, but they also won't get healed from magic attacks anymore, or get healed from magic heals anymore, because they don't believe in magic.
They turn into Seto Kaiba. Okay.
But that's slightly different because I think they can still use magic weirdly.
Well, no, I mean you're on, and I had on my list, and yes, I did do some homework. I had meltdown question mark because
What is meltdown question mark?
well, when we're talking about like status ailments versus like monkeying with stats, like taking away someone's faith, for example. Meltdown is a spell that shows up in a couple Final Fantasy games, and in 8, it kind of didn't do what it did in other ones. In 8, when you hit an opponent with Meltdown, it sets their spirit and their vitality, basically their magic defense and physical defense, to 0 while it's affecting them. So it's kind of a very unique status ailment in that game. And so that then you can unload on them without having to worry about their defense or magic defense. So that's why I had question mark is like, okay, yeah.
I would call like numbers-based stat debuffs a kind of status ailment if they're like formalized for specifically what stats they affect.
I mean, yeah, if we call slow a status ailment, slow is just lowering something's speed. That's how that works. So, and stop sets it to 0 for a set amount of time. Stop in Final Fantasy 12. That's the one with Van and Balthier was horrible because you couldn't remove it easily. And stop was a big pain, and there's a dungeon which is already one of the worst dungeons in the game because there's no map, and every space, like every room is a small room that then branches off into corridors that teleport from one to the next, so you can't even like get a sense of progression. It's horrible. and there's an area in there where there are enemies toward the end that hit you with stop, and you're like, okay, I'll wait, and then you realize you're not coming off of stop, and you're like, oh, so yeah.
Yeah, once
Anybody else?
once I used stop in Final Fantasy VII Remake once, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is cool. Because that game isn't turn-based. So when you cast stop on an enemy and it just stands there for you to wail on, that is glorious.
I am still
Yeah, I
half
couldn't
an
figure out
hour
if when
into
you
remake.
did
So.
that, does the damage compound against them? Like, do they take damage while they're stopped? Because I got the impression in the remake that was no.
Oh, they take damage. It doesn't show until the stop wears off.
If you ever played the original Kingdom Hearts had stop as well.
Oh,
And
wait,
you
yeah, I'm thinking of Kingdom Hearts, actually.
and that's one where Donald, once he learns it, uses it like all the time, and it's frustrating
Yes, it
because
is.
I mean, it's good because the enemy won't move, but then you really have no sense, and generally you overkill them by quite a bit when there's like 5 other guys you need to be hitting. So, and
That's
I
not what
agree.
I thought from Kingdom Hearts. Is I
forgot
would
about that
wail
part.
on them, and then the characters would come unstop, and they didn't have any damage on them.
I'm pretty sure they got
It
hit
was the
all at
most
once at the
annoying thing
end.
when he would cast stop. He'd be like, "Oh my gosh, now I'm going to be targeting this thing, and it's not going to deal any damage." That's not how I remember stop, because I have done the wailing thing, and then the creatures just didn't come
Oh,
on
wait.
when they came on stop. Their health was right where it was when they got stopped.
Are we back in Kingdom Hearts now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, in 1, I can't speak to 2 or 3 because 2 I haven't played in forever, and 3 I haven't played at all.
I don't
But in
think it's
1,
in
yeah,
2 or
an enemy
3.
that's stopped will look like they're not taking any damage, and then when the stop wears off, all the damage gets dealt to them at once.
Yeah.
Or all the
But
damage that they took registers.
Yeah. But
But,
it's hard to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, and that might be the case for me, because I definitely remember wailing on a bunch of the creatures that takes like 1 or 2 hits, and I'm wailing on them because I, for whatever reason, like auto locked onto them, and then when they came unstopped, it looked as though they hadn't taken any damage, and I'm going, well, I have to go back and re-kill these guys.
I'd never cast stop in 1. Donald did it way more than I did, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
you get to Phantom, and you're like,
Stop.
oh
Stop.
shoot,
Stop.
oh shoot,
Yeah.
no, on the clock tower.
Yes. The only time I ever cast stop was on the Phantom.
So those are the 3 main like types of negative status effects that I could come up with while thinking about it, based on recent RPG experiences.
Right.
And even like mostly
And
recent.
there are some hybrids that, like you said, might deal damage and also remove action economy. And then there's some that don't entirely fit into any category. For example, Berserk.
Yeah, Berserk is the one I was going to bring up. Yeah, because
there you go. Go
lose
ahead.
control of the character that's berserked, but in at least some of the Final Fantasy games, they get an attack buff.
Right.
Like their
So
strength goes up or something, so you can't use them anymore. But if all you were using them for is attacking anyway, it's fine.
Well, and I remember in 4, if you have a high strength character, it's not uncommon to throw Berserk on them, because not only are they attacking for more damage, but you are not selecting their actions anymore, which means they actually move faster through the turn order. So it's almost like a pseudo
in the randomizer Final Fantasy Enterprise, the randomizer for Final Fantasy IV. In those runs, like if you end up with a bunch of physical damage dealers, the plan is to like use whatever resources you have that are finite. Like if you've got edge, you want to throw your big bad swords at him, and then berserk him, and then just or berserk as many of your attacking characters as you can, and just see what happens.
Right. And it is still a status ailment because it can be used on you, and if you're not planning for it, then you might be like, all right, well, Rosa's now berserked. I guess I'm dead.
Yeah, that is the freaking worst, is when your caster gets hit with berserk and nobody else has a way to fix it. Like, ugh.
But at the same time, again, it's something that you can use for hilarious effect on your enemies. I think in 6, the magic master at the top of not Kefka's tower, but the Fanatic's tower,
Yeah.
you can berserk it, and it will still, when it dies, it will still cast Ultima because that's a triggered effect. I don't. Maybe that'll even fail. I'm not sure, but so the Fanatic's Tower is a special area where the fight command is sealed, and the expectation is you'll have to use magic to get to the top, and it's long. It is a long way up,
It is
and
so
at the
long.
top you'll fight a master wizard type thing, and if you inflict berserk on them, then he deals incredibly minor physical damage because he's not built that way, and it can be kind of a cheat. You can also cast. You can still bring along a physical fighter and cast berserk on them, so that you're not using all your magic points in every battle. I always brought the Yeti with me in there. I don't know about you, Chewy, but I always brought the Yeti.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. The Yeti is actually a character that is perma berserked. Like, you can't even access his command. He's just...
I did the exact
Yeti
same
goes
thing as
smash.
Brian, because the Yeti is OP in the physical attack, especially in the Fanatic's Tower.
Yeah. Especially if you've got the berserker's ring on him or whatever that lets him throw teammates.
Yep.
And the damage is affected by the relics that the teammate has.
Mm-hmm.
Which I always found hilarious.
He also got a blizzard orb that would change his attack to like an area of effect ice attack.
Yep.
And I equipped it, and it deals mediocre damage, and I unequipped it, and I'm like, Yeti smash. So, but so berserk is one that's kind of a hybrid. I kind of come back to where I started.
I remember watching my brother beat the final boss of Final Fantasy VIII with his last character standing was a berserk Zidane. The last few turns, Thomas just set down the controller and was like, okay, let's see what happens.
Final Fantasy 9, if it has Zidane.
8? Okay, 9, yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
9.
I kind of want to see Zidane in 8. He's
Seal
light.
was the one from 8.
Well,
yeah, Zell?
Zell. Yeah,
well,
you're right.
Zell. Okay. But going back to where I had started with the analogy at the beginning, confuse is infuriating, and I don't know that I've ever really successfully cast it much on the opponents, because generally, as soon as the target is dealt physical damage, they snap out of it. So it's hard to really, unless you're in a game where you're playing a lot of magic casters, which can happen. It's not as effective. But when it hits you, it's the worst, because you lose your turns. Your actions are selected randomly, and I think they are weighted to be against you. I know there's some games where you can be confused and you can still hit the opponent, but there's some where they will only attack their own side. And I've had games, and I'm trying to remember which Final Fantasies they will do this, where the character can also still cast magic spells. So they might just be like, death your party.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but in Pokemon, would a confused Pokemon just either pick a random move or sometimes bop itself?
I think at least in the earlier generations, it would say if it was confused, it would just deal damage to itself. I don't think it would actually use a move,
okay. All right.
Which is probably better, because for those that haven't played Pokemon, your character has no fight move they can just use an unlimited number of times. They learn moves that they can perform that are attacks, and they can only use them a set number of times before they need to then recharge with essentially a long rest in D&D terms at the Poke Center. So if it was to be like, I'm going to go ahead and use Fire Blast on itself, which it can only use a total of 5 times, that would suck in a multitude of ways.
Yeah.
So
Good point.
But yeah, the what was it? There was one game where it was a Final Fantasy game, if I remember, where if you're confused, that the character can use anything on there, and so they'll go through even items.
oh,
Yeah, I played one where the guy was confused and he cast an elixir on the enemy I was fighting, and I think it was a boss.
you look tired. Here you go. Thanks, boss.
Like, yeah, we've been wailing on the boss, and then he confused one of the party members, and then he went through the item menu and used one of my elixirs
Oh,
and healed the boss.
that
Bruh.
hurts my soul.
Oh, it made me cry.
Elixirs are not to be used. They're to be carefully curated for
I think it's
looking
Final
at...
Fantasy IX.
Oh,
If I remember correctly, I think it was Final Fantasy IX.
well.
Wow.
Oh, that stinks.
Oh yeah, it did. It did.
I know there was at least one game where I was hunting a rare monster. I wish I could remember which one it was, but I've played a whole lot of Final Fantasy in my life. But I'm like, oh yes, finally the monster I'm looking for, and confused and cast exit, which
Yeah.
takes you out of the battle. I know that happened to me at least once. But I'm actually really glad you brought up 9 in specifically, because the other flip side um to status ailments is not just, okay, this exists, here's what it does, but it's also how the game treats it. Because there's some games where once you're past maybe the halfway point, poison doesn't even matter. Chewie mentioned the Marsh Cave. And so much of the Marsh Cave is a problem because of poison, but it's also early. It's like one of the first dungeons you find. You go to the Chaos Temple, you go to the town with the pirates, you get the ship, and then you go to the Marsh Cave, right?
Yep.
It's early. But at a certain point in the game, once you have access to, oh, I can buy a lot of remedies, or oh, I can cast, antidote or whatever, it's not as big a deal. In 6, when you can equip star pendants as just accessories and just never get poisoned, it's not a big deal. I believe
Also,
in 9.
if you get
Go ahead.
poisoned, you can equip a star pendant and then unequip it, and the poison's gone.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, I've been using that to cure status ailments in 6, like when somebody gets blinded or hit with dark, I guess is what it's called.
yeah.
They put on the deal with it shades.
Yeah.
You just
Oh, I was gonna
equip
mention-
the what is it, the silver spectacles, and then immediately unequip it, and it gets rid of the thing. At one point, when I was out of antidotes, my entire party was poisoned. I was like, oh wait, I don't have to trudge it all the way back to town. I've got star pendants.
There you go. And I'm glad. Thank you for mentioning blind, because blind is another one where it's kind of a hybrid. Like, it kind of affects action economy, but it doesn't. Like, blind so mute or silence is, hey, this character can't cast spells. Blind means, okay, this character, depending on the game, has significantly or totally removed accuracy. I think there's some where your accuracy is 0. You will miss. There are other games where it's not 0 and you can still try an attack and maybe you have a 50-50 shot or better.
Yeah.
So
like in 6, it's just like a debuff to your hit percentage essentially. That's all it is.
right. So it's another one where it doesn't specifically, like, it doesn't deal damage. It doesn't affect your action economy necessarily unless you're always taking a turn to remove it. So
Yeah.
but as I was starting to say, so like I believe 9 had an interesting take on its how you learned abilities. You would equip items, you would equip weapons and armor and accessories to a character, and that weapon would essentially come preloaded with, oh, this knife can teach a character bug killer, so it'll deal extra damage to bugs. And after you've fought enough battles and gained enough AP while holding this weapon, you've now learned that ability and you can equip something else. And I think in 9 didn't it have like resistance to specific debuffs as those type of abilities, like uh, blind proof, poison proof, that sort of thing. I haven't played 9 in a while, but I feel like that's right.
Maybe.
I only know from watching it, but I think you're right too.
So, kind of going again toward what I was saying about how the game treats its own status ailments. Because there's some status ailments where there's some games where I feel like you're playing in status ailments the whole time, and there's some games where I feel like they're a bigger deal at the beginning, and then by the end of the game they almost don't even matter. And 9 and 5 were two games that kind of caught me unawares at the final boss, because you're kind of going along, you're like, okay, I'm dealing lots of damage. I'm chaining, like, rapid fire into like flare sword and blah 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 blah. And then I mentioned those two in particular because both of them have final bosses that don't just deal damage, they also have moves that inflict a horrendous amount of status ailments. Like when you're fighting against Necron in 9, you're like going along, okay, I got this, and then he's like, I think it's Grand Cross, and all of a sudden, it's like a completely random assortment of status ailments. And maybe if you didn't have the protections equipped, if you're just min maxing your damage, all of a sudden, like, one character is petrified, one character is confused and mini, and the next person is mute and blind, and you're like, and you can be going along fine, and all of a sudden your party is completely wrecked. Like, you were ready to deal with high amounts of damage, but not your party turning into just like blah,
Right. Well, and there's another one that was Lady Unalesca in Final Fantasy X.
That was, if it weren't for the long cutscene right before it, I would say that'd be one of my favorite battles of the whole game because of how unique it was.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't be one of my favorite ones in the game because of what a pain in the butt it was. Oh, so tell us about Lady Unalesca.
So Lady Unalesca has an incredibly long pre-fight cutscene that thankfully you can actually skip in the redone whatever.
Remaster.
But anyway, remaster. Thank you. But what she does is she zombifies characters, which in one, the zombify, you can still fight, if I remember correctly. But if you are hit with healing magic, then it hurts you. And if someone uses a phoenix feather on you, you die.
Correct.
And what's worse is the effect does not go away when you die.
Wait, what?
If I remember correctly, wasn't that part of it too, that if you got hit with it when you die, that you still have the stat on you?
Like, if I maybe
because that was, if your character dies and they had zombify on them, then they just can't come back for that fight, if I remember correctly. I could be very well be wrong. It's been a while since I played it.
That would make it almost impossible to revive them.
Well, that's why you don't let them die. So that's the whole thing is she tries to, her goal is to zombify the party, and then she casts heal on everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, she can cast heal on herself, which I think, I'm trying to remember if she zombified herself. So I think you can cast heal on her.
I can't remember.
And use items on her.
I know there is a boss like that. She might.
Yeah. I just
Oh,
don't remember if it was her or not. But
I
yeah,
think
if I remember correctly, that when you died, like you know how your skin is green. I think your characters are still green skinned when it's all done. I could very well be wrong. It's like I said, it's been years since I played it.
So,
But that
so
was like it's a booger of a match if you are not ready for it.
So, 2 points to what you said. First of all, I think the fight where you're talking about something zombifying itself is the Seymour boss that you fight before that one, the one on the cliffside, which is probably the hardest battle in the entire game, possibly, other
That's
than
one
like
of them.
super bosses. And then second, one of the things that made Unalesca so interesting is because she had 3 phases, and in the first phase, she just dealt a lot of damage. In the second phase, she is inflicting you with zombie, and your first instinct is remove the condition. The problem with that is as soon as you go to the third phase, she has a special ability called Megadeth that kills anyone that's not a zombie.
Yep.
So that's the trick is making sure you have zombies, but don't let them go out of control. It's like if you're in The Walking Dead and you're keeping some in your backyard and you're like, how are the zombies doing today? Well, we're holding on to them for now, But sorry, that was bad. But I like zombie exists in Final Fantasy VI, and I think when a character becomes a zombie, their hit points drop to 0, and they become
confused.
Kind of confused, but they can't. At least in that one, they can still hit the opponent. But I think they only do physical attacks. I don't think they use magic.
Yes.
I just recently lost a run or had a game over because I was in the desert and my party, I didn't care about this fight, so I tried to run and 2 people ran and Tara got boned. The ability's called bone. They threw the bone at her. She turned into a zombie, and she turned and swung at whoever else was standing there that was low on health that hadn't run yet. And I went,
well, didn't you have 2 people escape already?
yeah, wait, maybe I must be conflating that with the time when everybody died.
Maybe
because then it would have just kicked me to the. It would have just kicked me to the overworld with those 2 dead and the other 2 still alive. But I definitely lost 2. Oh, there were 2 of the fossil dragons, and they boned 2 of my players. And I tried to cast Isuna. Did you know Isuna does not heal zombie? I forgot.
I did.
Oh.
Yeah. There's very few ways to remove
holy
zombie,
water,
which is kind of a pain.
Holy water is really low in cost, so it's easy to get and stock up on. But if you forget,
I've had 4 forever because Locke is on permanently on steel, and those things you steal holy waters from. But by the time I steal a holy water, it always bones somebody. So I get a 5th one, and then I have to use it. So I've just got 4 holy waters in my inventory perpetually.
There was somebody in that game that dropped holy waters in some part of the game. I feel like when you're in well, you're not there yet, but you played the game already. When you're in the cave to go to the Esper world, there are a ton of zombies down there.
Yep.
Creatures with the zombie effect, and they will drop holy water left and right. So,
and I finished that part.
That's right, you had done that. I forgot where you were.
Yeah.
In 6, as well as I think in some of the other Final Fantasies, if your last party member that's alive is zombified, you lose.
Game over.
If you only have zombies. I think in 10 that's not the case because otherwise the Unalesca fight would not make sense. So
yeah,
I think it's treated differently in different games. Can you turn somebody into a zombie in Pokemon? I don't think you can.
No.
Although now I kind of want to see a zombie Pikachu. Or do I?
The most annoying status effect is sleep.
In
Pokemon.
Because is that another one where they may or may not ever wake up? Like
that is correct. Mm-hmm. Even being hit with an attack, the Pokemon has been like, I just got electrocuted. Shh.
So it's like Dragon Quest, or at least the original Dragon Quest.
And let me tell you, some of the creatures are absolute cheats. I know because I think it was 2 days ago I was playing, and I got hit with drowse or whatever. My Pokemon got put to sleep,
Yeah.
and then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna use the item that's reawake, so it wakes your Pokemon up. Well, because my Pokemon's asleep, they get to attack first. So they attacked me. It didn't wake up. I threw my item out, and my Pokemon woke up. All right, we're going to go. The creature on its next turn cast the sleep spell again.
Because screw you.
And I
that's
did this
why.
again, so I was like, okay, well, I'm using another item. Wake up. And then and it attacked me. And then on the next round, it cast it again, and my Pokemon went to sleep.
I'm
It was one of the
tired,
ghosts.
Dad.
I think it was
want to take a
Ghastly was
nap.
what they kept doing. Oh, I was so
Well,
mad.
yeah, because Ghastlies, that's what they do. And if they ever upgrade it to a Gengar and they gain Dream Eater, that is the whole strategy: is put you to sleep and then eat your dreams, which deals massive damage and heals them for the same amount. So,
Well, no, this wasn't a person. This was the wild one was doing this to me.
then you're just screwed.
Yeah, well, the problem is I had dealt it damage because mine was super leveled, but it did that, and and finally I just said I'm just gonna let this one ride out, and fortunately my Pokemon woke up the next round and absolutely electrocuted the holy crap out of that Gengar or Ghastly.
Oh, a Ghastly, not even a Haunter.
Well,
Jeez.
yeah.
Well, what's really really disturbing is that the Ghastly is going to put your Pokemon to sleep, and then while it's asleep, it's going to start licking them. Just let that sit for a little bit. Not consensual. Ugh. Let's get back to Terra being boned again, can we? That feels a little less icky.
No, it was way worse.
Wait, yeah. Go ahead.
So we're focusing a lot on these turn-based RPGs, but status effects are in all kinds of games.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Like sticking to video games, like the background for this image or for this video that I came up with at the last minute was grab a poison swamp from Dark Souls, because Miyazaki has a weird poison swamp fetish apparently. And the poison status in Dark Souls is damage over time for either until it's cured, until you die, or for a set amount of time, which I thought was a nice touch.
Mm-hmm.
But the way poison works in the Dark Souls games, bear in mind I've never played a Dark Souls game yet, but you have to be exposed to it, and the higher your poison resistance is, the more it takes for it to actually hit. But once it does, poison's just the same all the time. You're gonna take this much damage per second or whatever for this long, and if you're still alive at the end of that, then you're good. Okay. Unlike in a Final Fantasy game, where once you're poisoned until you're dead or you use an antidote.
Okay.
And there's stuff like in Kid Icarus.
Where you can turn into an eggplant?
You can get turned into an eggplant, so you can't do anything but run and jump.
Mm-hmm. We've already talked about confusion in terms of RPGs, but there are action RPGs or action games where when your character's hit with confusion, you run in random directions. Like when you press left, you might press right, or you press up and you press down, and it's difficult, especially in some of those games where you don't know how long the effect is going to last, and so you're like, okay, when I press down, I go up, and so you're holding down. Then when the effect ends and you can't tell, all of a sudden you're going down again. And you're like, ugh. So, messing with directions,
God,
especially
anything
in
that
like,
messes with your controls is just a nightmare.
yeah.
I can't think of a game where that happens, but I know it has, and I've been super frustrated, and it's bugging me that I can't think of it.
I think, does it happen in Kingdom Hearts? I know you
It
just
does.
finished the first one a while ago, so I think that's
Kingdom
an
Hearts, it
example of
does it. It does it really bad in the card one.
Oh, the card one.
Kingdom
The Kingdom
Memories?
Hearts card game?
Right. No, the Kingdom Heart, the second game,
Yeah,
Chain of Memories. Chain of Memories is really bad about doing that.
Really?
If you get hit with confusion, then it's essentially your controller is inverted, with all your commands,
Ugh.
or like everything is reversed. I'm trying to think if because there's other games that have done it.
Oh, I'm sure. And I think, again, you can see that in action games as well.
Primarily, yeah.
Yeah.
In something else that might count as a status effect, kind of, sorta,
Mm-hmm.
is in the Arkham games. There are enemies that can turn off your detective vision. Hey, somebody just resubbed. Al with a 90-month resub. Holy crap. He said, give them all the dots, like 90 of them. More dots? All right, stop dots. Now heal me. Okay, sorry. For like the few people that understood that reference, you're going, ha! And the rest of you are like, what is he talking about? Is that racist?
I mean, I don't know the reference, but I know what damage over time is, so yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there are enemies in the Arkham games that can shut off your detective vision, which is what allows you to track enemies and see traps and things like that. And if they've got a jammer up and you can't use it in a predator section, it is the worst. Because in the predator sections where you're trying to stealthily take out a room full of baddies, not like that. Thank you, Mike. I assume that was you. This giggle.
Yes.
But losing that ability is just crippling, and you've got to use your stupid normal human eyes to figure out where that enemy is and how to take him out. Or I think in Arkham Knight there are like drones that fly around and mess up your detective. I haven't played Arkham Knight yet. I've only played Asylum and City.
Mm-hmm.
But that's an example of a status effect in an action game that is just awful.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because it takes away one of your primary tools. That's the main purpose of. That's like the silence and darkness and whatnot in the Final Fantasy game. It removes some of your tools that are at your disposal, and that makes you sad.
Right. Thinking about effects that mess with you, and I think I mentioned this in the when we were discussing doing this a couple days ago. We've mentioned Eternal Darkness before because it is a super unique game. It really was, I think, a product of some people that really wanted to bring something a little different to video games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've tried to replicate this sort of thing since then, but I don't know that there's ever been a game that has just gone this far.
The problem with that is that it was copywritten, copyrighted as a game mechanic.
Oh, really?
Which has since run
Really?
out. But at the time
That's
when
awful.
people would have been iterating on it and making it, more different and more better, they couldn't.
Well, that's too
I did
bad.
not know that.
And okay. Well, and I think now if we tried to do something like that, yes, it could be done, but a lot of it was how innovative it was at the time. But in Eternal Darkness, you had a sanity meter, and if your sanity was depleted enough, weird stuff would happen. So I'm treating this almost like having low sanity as a status ailment, because that's really what it was. Like, what's something that would happen, Chewy, if you were low on if your sanity was gone?
Well, the first thing that always happens when your sanity meter gets low is the camera, because it's a third person action game. The camera would just tilt just a little bit, just enough to be unsettling. Like in films, it's called a Dutch angle.
Yeah.
Like you would tilt, like 30 degrees to the left to where everything just felt wrong. And then sometimes just weird stuff would happen. My favorite ever is when you're playing as the portly guy. I can never remember characters' names. But and you go to he had two single shot pistols. Whatever those were called. You know the ones.
Yeah, I don't remember the technical name for them right now.
Yeah, but he had two single shot pistols, and when you went to reload them, he would tuck one under his arm and reload this one.
Yeah,
and then tuck that under his arm and reload this one. And when your sanity was low, you had a chance of, while reloading, to blow your own head off and continue the reloading animation. And I think he might walk around for a couple seconds without a head. And then the screen would flash white and you'd hear him go, and then he'd be standing there just fine.
Yeah. The thing with these, a lot of these madness effects in this game is not that they would cause a game over. If anything, they would trick you into thinking that you had lost. And then, oh wait, no. Like, I feel like there was one where if your sanity was low and you went through a door, all of a sudden you'd be in a room with like 20 monsters that would kill you immediately. And when you're like, really, what the hell? What's going on?
Yeah, there'd suddenly be a big crowd of enemies, and either they would just mob you, or like your head would fall off and one of your arms would fall off, or
I love that one too. There's one where you sink into the floor.
There's one where the volume...
As if you broke the game and clipped through the floor like it was a Bethesda game.
There's one where it turned off the volume to your TV, or so you thought.
It appeared to, yeah.
Yeah, a volume thing, as we're on some TVs back then. Would show up on the screen, bars, and the volume level would just drop all the way, and all the audio would stop. And most of these would end with the screen flashing and the character you were playing with making some sort of like gibbering sound, like
yeah.
The one that got me the worst, because I had no idea one time, was you go to pause the game, go to the screen where you save the game, and then the little window pops up. It's like, are you sure you want to delete your save? And I've never seen that before, and I'm like, no.
Like, wait, no, I must have misclicked. And then the little
status bar starts going, deleting save, and I'm like, what? But no, it wasn't really happening.
Dirk, you don't like horror, right? You don't like horror films or shows or whatever. I bet you would love this game, wouldn't you?
No, I would not.
I mean, it's not... Eternal Darkness, while it has some like horror themes and whatnot, the game itself isn't terribly horror-y. It's more action-y.
Yeah, it's action-y. There are some stressful parts where you're just like low on health and whatever, and there are monsters all around. You're like, but.
Well, that's just playing a video game.
Story's cool.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Mike, and I wanted to ask him about this on this episode when we're talking about status ailments. Don't you have that? Wasn't there a Cthulhu-based? Well, there's probably been more than one, but a Cthulhu-based trading card game.
Yep.
Call of Cthulhu or Mythos.
Yes.
Or something?
And I also have some of the source books for the role-playing game too.
For the card games, because I think Pokemon does the status effects. Magic, other than keywords, and they don't really make detrimental keywords anymore. Oh heavens, no. But unless you consider banning a status ailment, which you might, they don't always cross over into card games. But is there anything like this, a status element, a madness element, anything like that, in the card game?
Well, your sanity is basically your hit points in the card game.
Okay.
There are two ways to win. One by accumulating enough adventure points, the other by knocking out your opponent's sanities completely, which is, how many games go, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Oh, sure. If I drive my opponent insane, I definitely win, no matter which game it is.
Yeah, but there aren't any like effects in that way.
Okay. I was just curious.
Now, bringing up card games, Magic does have a lot of things that could be construed as status effects, like most recently stun counters.
That's true, and honestly, that's a really good point. And poison. Like, so poison in Magic isn't damage over time. It's just get 10 and lose. It's like instant death.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even like minus any sort of negative counter, stun counter, -1/-1 counter, are essentially card game status effects.
That's true.
Yeah.
They've also put out
like humble is a status effect. Anything that says loses all abilities and becomes a 1/1, that's a hell of a status effect.
Mike, you said you play a lot of Brawl on Arena. A while ago, I think maybe after last week, I was really kind of getting a bit tired of Standard, and so I went into Brawl and I built a new Brawl deck, and I really like it. It's based around the black, red, green Winter from the House of Horrors set, and I
Right.
really like it. But there was one game where I thought I was doing really well, and then my turn ended, and the opponent said, "Okay, good game," and I'm like, "Why?" And then he played whatever the aura, the enchantment is that is the humility for all of your opponent's stuff. They are all 1/1s and lose all abilities, and I can see it's a picture of the sunrise on Amonkhet between the bolus horns,
Oh.
and I was like, "Wow, that." I mean, oh, I the game proceeded for a little while, but didn't really matter. So,
Yeah,
ugh.
that's interesting. I don't see that often. I have to remember what the name of that is.
I'll look it up real quick. But it kind of and not to mention Magic has put out not just enchant players, but even specifically curses, which are enchant players that are meant to enchant opponents and give them negative effects.
Right.
So
Yeah, for that.
overwhelming splendor is what
Overwhelming splendor. Okay, yeah. I guess
and it's
lucky to
a
not see that
curse.
very often.
It's
Uh-huh.
a curse. Enchant play
Oh, it is a
costs
curse.
8.
Okay.
It costs 8. Enchant player. Creatures enchanted player controls lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 1/1. Enchanted player can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities or loyalty abilities. Yeah. I don't blame the guy for playing it. It's fine, but it kind of felt like game was going along, and then nothing I did mattered anymore. And I was like,
Right.
"Aw." I did not even find $5.
Boo.
Yep.
Oh.
One that I don't know if it technically is a status effect, although I do think it kind of plays into this, is in the Fallout series when you get radiation poisoning.
Oh yeah, radiation poisoning is absolutely a status effect.
That counts.
Is it? I've never played Fallout. I know we talked about this while we were covering the secret layers, or well, wait, no, I
No,
forget which
Commander Decks.
products. Thank you.
Mhm.
Too many products. But what does radiation poisoning do in Fallout? Is it like poison, or how does it work?
What's the best way to describe it? So what it does is it's something you acquire by drinking water, by essentially living in the wastelands. Things that it does, it can suppress your total hit points.
So
Like
reduces
it's
max
kind of got a
HP.
mixed bag of effects that it has, because it's depending on how much radiation poisoning you have, different things set in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think one of them is if you get really poisoned, doesn't your ability to heal is reduced. So if you're like, I need to heal, and you've got enough radiation poison on you, you actually don't heal fully. Because it depends on the game. I know Fallout 4 radiation goes onto your life tab. So if you get a lot of radiation, then it actually cuts into your hit points itself. So that's how it reduces your healing ability. But I think with one may have been 3, that if you got it, that you were. I think there were some beneficial effects that came from it, but more often, or I think like you, if you got hit with addiction or something, that the addiction didn't hurt you as much. There's something that the radiation does, that there is some benefit to it, but in the overall, it's not beneficial.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
But
Fallout.
the big thing is it cuts into your total hit points.
Yeah, Fallout is loaded with
Status effects.
Status effects, like every Bethesda game, there's over encumbered, so you can't run because you're carrying too much crap. You can get addicted to chems. You can get drunk.
If you're addicted to chems, then it reduces your stats, right? Like if you don't take the chem, you get a. Do what?
I think depending on which chem it is, like getting addicted to buff out has a different than getting addicted to like psycho. I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I never did that in any of the games. I always used it only if I needed to.
Okay, hang on. Let me look this up. Okay, here we go. Yeah, withdrawal effects of the different meds, like buff out withdrawal effects, you have -1 endurance and -1 strength.
Mm-hmm.
Buff out increases your strength. And then mentats increases your intelligence, but if you're having withdrawal, then you have -1 intelligence and -1 perception. So it's whatever that thing increases is what takes a hit when you're addicted and are having withdrawal symptoms. That's pretty cool. Or at least that was in Fallout 3. It gets even more ridiculous as the games go on.
Was it when it got to radiation poisoning? I know the downside, but was there an upside to being poisoned? Or not the radiation sickness? Sorry.
I don't know.
We know
There's not a. I'm on character condition here, and there's not a link for anything other than radiated, but that's only for Fallout 1 and 2. Oh, here we go. There's a link for Fallout 3 and New Vegas. See radiation. Okay. Radiation does... Oh my god, it's giving me freaking... like, what radiation is in the lore. Jesus Christ. Why does Fallout 4 not here? 76... Here we go, Fallout 4. Okay. Radiation decreases max health as the radiation poisoning arises. Okay. 1,000 is fatal, so if you're fully radiated, then you lose all of your HP. That makes sense. Health loss. This is a massive chunk of this wiki page. I'm very sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
I'm not seeing anything positive. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything positive, although again, this is a large chunk. So I could be missing something. I think there are perks that you can get that give you stuff if you're irradiated, aren't there?
Maybe that's what it is that I was thinking about.
Because isn't there something like you get Like the more radiated you get, the stronger you are, or something silly like that.
That's
Something
what
Hulk related.
maybe that's what I was thinking of. Because like I'm think that there actually were perks for you to be radiated, and I was thinking it would had to do with strength because it was almost like you were sort of like a ghoul.
Yeah, it could
But
be.
that might be what it is.
But yeah, you can also going back to
Because here
regular...
Fallout 3 conditions as the rad go up, yeah, there's no positive. It's all negative.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But going back to other status effects in Fallout, which is a first-person action RPG type thing, for those of you that don't know, at least 3, New Vegas, and 4, you know, not going back to the originals because I don't know anything about those. But you can, like, if certain areas of your body take enough damage, they can become crippled. So, like, if your arm gets crippled, then your melee damage is lessened. If your head gets crippled, your intelligence and perception drop.
And if your head is crippled, then your vision kind of goes in and out in terms of being fuzzy. And if your arm is crippled, then that means that if you try to aim with that arm, that your aim is like your gun keeps moving around.
Oh.
So it's harder to actually like aim your gun and shoot.
Huh. Well, there you go then. So yeah, there are all kinds of status effects in Fallout. I was trying to think of some in Skyrim, but all I can think of are diseases, and those are
That's a mixed bag.
just moderately annoying. Like,
Never played Skyrim, so what? This sounds so PSA. What's a disease? But like, you're what makes a disease in Skyrim?
like if you get attacked by a like a skeever, a giant mutated rat thing, you can get like ataxia, which makes your lock picking and pickpocket harder. What is ataxia? I'm assuming that makes your hand shake, maybe. A neurological condition characterized by a lack of coordination and balance. Okay.
You can also be poisoned.
Yeah, like you can get rock joint, which gives you 25% less effective with melee weapons, or wit bane, which makes you dumb and your magicka recovers 50% slower. That's your mana. In a different world, the mana pool could have been called the magicka meter. I'm just saying. Brain rot gives you minus 25 magicka. Bone break fever gives you minus 25 stamina. Blackheart blight drains 10 points from carry weight, so it just makes you slightly weaker when you're carrying stuff.
I'm liking the flavor with this though. It feels a lot more involved than just
Yeah.
Except all of these like sound bad, but they're really just, you could have every disease in the game and not even care and still function perfectly fine. And as soon as you pray at what's the shrine, or take a potion of cure disease, or just eat a feather, then all of your diseases, a hawk feather, there we go, all of your diseases are just gone. So like they're there flavorfully, but they're more of like a minor obnoxious thing that can happen rather than... Now if you're in survival mode and you get one of these, close to the beginning of the game, that can be bad. But in normal gameplay, it's like, oh, I got rock joint, hang on a minute, okay, I'm better now. Like the only disease that actually could do something is the hang on, it's probably on this list here, Sanguinare Vampiris, which if you
That's
don't
from Oblivion, isn't it?
Do what?
Is that from Oblivion?
No, it's from Skyrim. I mean, it might be in Oblivion too, but if you don't treat it, then you become a vampire.
Yeah. Is that a problem?
I mean, because if you're a vampire, then you take damage in the sunlight, and a lot of people hate you.
But the thing is I was hesitant to say it because that one and Lycanthropy are both storyline quest things. Like those are parts of the story.
Well,
Like part of the
lycanthropy is,
quest.
but the Sanguinary Vampirus you can just get from being attacked by a vampire. Like this was in the base game before Dawnguard was ever a thing.
Yeah. Well, I remember it being a thing in Oblivion, and that was like there were people who specifically went out to try and get it because having it gives you bumps. But as always, there's both pros and cons to it. It depends on your style.
Huh. That's neat.
Because I think that it gives you strength. I think it boosts like some of your stats, but at the same time, out in the sunlight, you're taking damage. It reduces your overall health, that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, here we go. So the Sanguinary Vampirus just gives you minus 25 health. Okay, if it progresses to Vampirism, stage 1 vampire, you have a 20% resistance to frost in the base game, but a 20% weakness to fire. And as the stages of Vampirism progress to stage 4, those go up by 10%. You also get spells like Vampiric Drain and Vampire Sight and whatnot, and some abilities like Vampiric Strength, Night Stalker's Footsteps. I never fooled with vampirism. I've still never played Dawnguard in Skyrim, so I did not know all this. This is crazy. But anyway, sorry, we got off on Bethesda games sort of specifically there.
Yeah.
That's mine and Dirk's bad.
No,
But that's a thing, and we were on Final Fantasy for a while too, and
Yeah.
Pokemon.
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine. I'm gonna let you guys know that I need to be going pretty soon, but I do want to say I am super impressed. We've been going for
Hour and a half.
going on two yeah, and yet I'm gonna still be the first person to say dysentery from Oregon Trail.
Nah.
Was that a status effect? I thought you just died.
Yeah, that's about. Or no, but you get sick, and depending on what you do, it can progress to the point that you die of it.
I don't know if dysentery
yeah.
is one of them, but yeah, as you're going along, the game will punish you for trying to go too fast, where it'll notify you, hey, like one of your wagon members was bitten by a snake, or almost drowned or something like that, and if you don't stop to let them heal, or if you don't slow down, then they will die if they didn't die automatically. So the whole point was to make you slow down. And most of the time when I played, I was like, forget that person. I'm going to try to make it there in record time, because
We're
the
gonna
fact is,
we're gonna get to the fort.
yeah, the fact of the matter is sometimes they would just die anyway. So my logic was the faster I got there, then at least, I know I made it. So, which, by the way, was not usually a winning strategy. I was not good at Oregon Trail. But there you go.
And now it's just a meme.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, you died of dysentery. Oh.
Yeah, and BioWare games like the Knights of the Old Republic, you can be poisoned, but I don't think that there was anything else. Like you could like stun people, so there were those kind of effects. But I mean, it's nothing outside of what we've already talked about.
Are there status ailments in World of Warcraft?
There are.
Do they
So
kind of
you
fall in
can
line with
sleep
what we talked
people,
about?
you can poison people. It really the rogues are known for having a lot of the status effects where you can be silenced. A lot of that stuff that you would expect from Final Fantasy games, a lot of that stuff is there too. But yeah,
Okay.
you can be sleeped, silenced, poisoned. Can't be petrified. Unless it's like a a mechanic of a fight or something like that. That, oh, you're going to be this, and you have to either wait or you have to click your way out of it, that sort of thing. But oh, there is one from World of Warcraft that I guess is probably worth mentioning, although it's the Blood of Harkoon, I think is what it was. But it was the Blood of Harkoon event. And that one
God,
was,
even I've heard of this one.
yeah, that was so what it is there was a boss fight that it would cause if you got the curse. It was like bleeding damage you were dealt. So it's constantly like knocking down your hit points. And so the goal of it was to heal the people and remove the buff, so the curse. But when the people did it, some people, the original one was it was got onto a pet, and then the pet was dismissed, and then when they called back the pet, it had the buff on them, and it spreads to neighboring creatures. So neighboring players, whatever, and so it would just hop from one to another, and they apparently did this in a major city, and so it spread to people, and it started decimating the capital cities as it was there. And so epidemiologists actually used the event to look at what happened, because some people were actually trying to fix it. They were like, let's heal this and everything. It was just spreading faster than they could heal. But you also had people who realized what was happening and they wanted to be destructive, so they would get it on a pet, and then they would dismiss the pet, and then they would go to other cities and then redo it. And so it went from being in one hub, and I think it was like Ironforge is where it was. They would actively go and spread it to, Stormwind and to Darnassus, and then it got so bad that they actually had to just completely redo this. That they shut down the server to redo it, and then they put in a patch that made it so that it could not leave the dungeon, the instance. But it was one that for I think it was like a couple days, it was actually considered studied by epidemiologists.
Yeah,
to
there's
see
a
how people
Wikipedia.
reacted to it.
There's a Wikipedia entry on this called "Corrupted Blood Incident."
Yes, that's what it was.
It was from
think I heard
September
about this, too.
13th, between September 13th and October 8th, 2005. So it was damn near a month.
I was there for that. I remember that. I remember going in, being in a city, and just instantly dying.
Yeah,
That was
because
the
like
level of time.
The infected animal companions became active disease vectors, and NPCs were asymptomatic carriers.
Yeah, they were so high level that they didn't die instantly, and as they walked around, they just sort of spread it.
So, in a video game, in a massive online RPG, MMORPG, thank you, you actually had bad actors that were spreading a disease-flavored status ailment using their enhanced stats and their pets to various locations around the world and creating a pandemic.
Yes.
There's things I want to say, and I feel like they
the parallels
all
are
kind of say
unparalleled.
themselves. Wow.
Oh, in this Wikipedia entry, the last section is comparisons to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah.
But yeah, the CDC, it says, contacted Blizzard after the incident, asking if they could use the data
to model how disease spread.
Yeah,
Yes.
in their disease modeling research. And because they thought it was a planned disease simulation, so the CDC was like, hey man, can we have the data on that? And Blizzard was like, no, because it was the unintentional result of a software bug, and thus they had no usable data. But
That's sad.
But there was enough word of mouth of what happened that they were able to, that they could be like, okay, so there are going to be people who are going to act, who are going to be good faith and be like, we're trying to heal people. These people are this. We're going to quarantine so that way it doesn't spread. You guys stay over here who are this. Everyone else is going to stay over here and whatnot. And then you have the bad actors who are like, agents of chaos. We're going to do this, actively spreading the contagion.
Yeah, and it says that was the particular interest to the researchers, is because unlike other simulations that are all, based on mathematical models or whatever, this one used real human behavior. And yeah, a lot. It mentions a few papers that were written, or articles in the epidemiology journal. Like this was a big deal, and fueled pandemic research for a while.
Yeah. That's kind of fascinating. I think there was something of a similar event in EverQuest back in the day, but not to that sort of scale. So, gentlemen, I need to be heading out. I think this has been a fascinating discussion, but it appears that I'm running on very few hours of sleep, and it's actually starting to hurt me to not be asleep. So I'm going to go take some medicine and try to remove this status ailment. So, did not plan this, but feels like it's appropriate.
I feel
my
like
final thought is
there's a status ailment that is like that. It's like well, in Bethesda games it's well arrested, but I swear there's a game where you can have a status effect of like not exhausted, because that sounds like you tapped it and you're not untapping it next turn. But like your character, the flavor of it is your character hasn't slept and therefore is having debuffs, but I can't
there are levels of exhaustion in tabletop D&D.
It's true.
If you get all the way to the end, you die.
you straight up die, but it gets harder to perform routine things, and then one of the early effects is your speed is cut in half because you are dragging yourself around, stuff like that.
Maybe D&D is what I'm thinking of then, yeah. Anyway,
D&D,
so how about a final thought then, B?
This was a great discussion, and I gotta say I'm really enjoying, as we've been having a lot of discussions lately, some more freeform than others, but about the different ways that games treat these common elements. I think it's been really fascinating to go into, and if anybody has a thought about something you'd like for us to talk about, let us know in the Discord, because at least one of us, Chewy, will see it, but I think when we're trying to figure out things to talk about, I think that'd be helpful. And I will also say,
but before you leave, in the text message where you pitched this idea to us, you mentioned Uno.
I did, because who hasn't played a game of Uno, and Uno's just progressing, then somebody's like, reverse card, and maybe you were going to go next. And it's like, okay, skip. Or the person right next to you reverses the order, and then it goes all the way around, and the other person on the other side of you reverses. So, like, action economy, I can't get rid of the cards in my hand, or, draw 4. Like, this is not necessarily so much a status effect, but it is changing the basic rules of the game in such a way that it's detrimental to one other person.
I feel like in the context of Uno, skip is absolutely a status effect. And I think draw 2 actually probably is too.
Yeah, it is getting you further away from the way that you complete the game. So, but the last thing I was going to say is, for my final thought, is Chivos for charity, woo! And I'm not going to be with Chewy for, what is that, 36 hours? But I'm definitely going to be dropping by, and I'm going to try to make it more than once. But
whoa,
gotta see how things are going with the fam and whatnot, and I'll be there when I can.
Yay!
All right, everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Night, B.
I am also in need of heading off to bed, so.
So, other than horrible sound effects, what you got?
Oh, I have my computer's back. I told
Oh.
the guys that, but I didn't, tell everybody else that.
Yay.
So I turned my computer. My computer was taken in because, number one, it's old, and when I say old, the last time my computer was built with a new motherboard and processor and everything was about 8 years ago. Between 8 and 9 years ago is when it was, you know, d- brought up to spec. I've been wanting to play. I've been playing Final Fantasy Rebirth. The problem is that, as I told Chewy, my processor and everything I have on it currently, the game would take like 20 minutes to load. When you were like, yes, I want to play this, load this file. It would take about 20 minutes to load, and I could play for about an hour. And then after that, the graphics started falling off, where like pixels would show up that weren't really there. So like the grass, like a line, like a plane that was the grass, but it wasn't. It just magically rendered this colored pixel on, and my character could walk right through it. Rock faces and features in the background lost definition, so it started to look a lot like the original Final Fantasy VII. So I was like, let me see what the specs are, and I was like, oh well, it looks like my graphics card is a little out of date. I need to do that. So originally it was to go in and get a new processor put on, because my graphics video card is fine, but my processor, I was going to get it upgraded. And when I went in and they looked at it and everything, it was, yeah, your board is, I think she said it was sixth or seventh generation. We're up to, I think it's like the 12th generation right now. So mine is like the new stuff that's out right now. My computer will not take it. So I made the decision that I was just going to get a new motherboard, new processor, new cooling fan, all that good stuff. So going from 20 minutes, my computer, when I turned on Final Fantasy Rebirth, 7 Rebirth, it took between 7 and 10 seconds for it to load.
A moderate
Which
upgrade.
It's a moderate upgrade from 20 minutes to 10 seconds to load a game. So, and that's the most high-end game that I've got right now on my computer. So, I think I'm good now for a while.
Probably,
Plus,
yeah.
the other reason why was with older stuff, it's harder to upgrade. With the stuff I've now have in it, if I want to upgrade my computer, like more memory, more whatever, it should be able to take the newer stuff, which will increase the life of the computer itself. Plus, I also wanted to get 11 because 10, like my computer would not support 11, and I do not want the software security stuff to lapse on the computer. So that were other reasons why I wanted to upgrade it. So yeah, that's the newest thing on my front is new computer, and the new computer is nice.
Awesome.
So with that, I'm off to bed, gentlemen. Have a wonderful night, and good night to all of you wonderful, wonderful people.
Night, Zerk. Well, Mike, it's just us.
Yep, just us.
Want to get naked? Oh wait, we're still streaming. I forget. Are you wearing pants?
Yes, I am.
Curses.
Workout pants.
Curses. Well then, what you got?
Oh, let's see. Yeah, it's neat how the one concept will be so similar across so many different games, like poison, across so many different video games, and then you get these odd outliers where it's implemented in some completely different way, like Dungeons and Dragons, where it just makes your character, terrible at doing anything, or Magic, where you just up and die all of a sudden out of nowhere. But it doesn't seem weird. You still get it. I think it took me a little bit to get over the idea that the D&D poison status in the current system does what it does and doesn't deal any damage, but it didn't take long to understand it and conceptualize it and be okay with it. Any well-designed mechanic is something that is going to feel natural.
Yeah.
Once you start playing.
Yeah, it also trips me out how many of games across, the history of games just do the same thing that they've always done.
Mm-hmm.
Like newer RPGs are doing different things. Like, let's see here. The status changes in, like, Persona 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of poison, there's burn, where you're taking damage every turn.
Yeah.
And dizzy means your attack accuracy is greatly reduced, which it's essentially dark.
Yeah.
But it's flavored differently. Shock, instead of asleep, you're unable to take actions.
Mm-hmm.
Forget, you're unable to use any skill. Stuff like that. Like, I liked it to where it's the same basic idea, but the flavor is completely different.
Right, yeah. Like we were noting earlier, things like poison and recurring burning damage or anything like that. It's basically some variation of poison. Sleep, stop, paralysis, petrification, all variations of something similar, but have those different concepts assigned to them to make flavor sense for whatever is causing them. Often I think often that's the deciding factor. What's causing them and why would it do this, as to why it gets concepted as one specific thing over another.
Yeah, like there are a couple of videos on the YouTube channel Design Doc.
Mm-hmm.
And the Design Doc logo is... Hang on. The Design Doc logo is like a... Of course, now I'm trying to find one and I can't. It's like a controller, but the cable is a stethoscope.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Design Doc?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a Wiimote. And then the nunchuck comes out and it's a stethoscope that goes in their ears. So that's what they mean. The Design Doc is in design document, but also Design Doc is in figuring out what makes things ticks. But they had one recently called like Weird Status Effects, which just like in the last 2 or 3 weeks, that is about status effects that aren't some of these normal ones. And they did another one a while back called "What's the Point of Status Effects?" that was also really good. And it's for anyone that is interested in this conversation, I recommend you look those up. I will try to remember to put a link in the description, but don't hold me to that, because in the time it'll take me to post this, I will probably forget. But he goes into, the purpose of status effects and whatnot. I haven't watched the original What's the Point of Status Effects because it was from a hot minute ago. When was this posted? No. Oh, I don't even know. Oh, here we go. 4 years ago, yeah. So I haven't watched that one in a while, but yeah. Highly recommend you look those up for a more thought out and scripted discussion of these things. But the weird status effects episode that was recent, I just love the idea. That's where I learned about atheism in Final Fantasy Tactics. So I was like, that is brilliant. And that's an old ass game that I'd never heard of, that effect. I think in the Western release it had a different name. But I don't remember that, because how could you forget inflicting someone with atheism?
That sounds like a slightly overworked localizer with a dictionary in one hand and a thesaurus in the other, just landing on something that seems good.
I mean, in this case, it makes sense because the effect is reduce faith to 0.
Oh yeah, I know. It makes perfect sense for what it does, but just the word choice, it's like, oh yeah, it seems fine.
But yeah, I was fascinated at how newer RPGs are getting away from, the same old that we've seen a million times before.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows that video games, are constantly evolving.
Yeah.
What they do and how they do it, and it just makes me happy.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. But anyway, with that, we will be done with this episode. So hey, don't forget, charity stream is very soon. As I said, when you're hearing this as an episode or a YouTube video, it's in a couple of days, most likely. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Help me spread the word, for God's sake. I've posted about it on all of the social medias. Please go find those and help me share the word, because I really want to break 2,000 this year. Last year we hit 13 something, and I'm hoping we can, adding the extra day, will push us over the 2,000 mark. Yeah. And you get free games, bruh. But also, don't forget to go to patreon.com/themanapool, become a lifeguard, you know the drill. So let me thank our mythic lifeguards in, I don't know, this order. No, that doesn't do anything. In this order. Here we go. Andrew Odie, ALK Alters, Jason Doan, Casey, Jason Kaus, Violet Moon, Timu Elizharyu, Michael, Jake Jansons, Scuzzo, Kim Ho, and Al. And if you're in the Discord, by the way, the Manapool Discord, which you should all join, you can see the full spreadsheet of games to give away right now. The whole thing, all 1,069 games or whatever it's up to now. What is it up to now? Oh, sorry, 1,070. So, because the way it's going to work is it's all going to be hidden except for the first tier, and every $100 I will reveal another chunk. So, it encourages people to give. But you can look at it all right now and find you some games you want right now. If you're in the Discord. So, by all means, just join the Discord. But okay, so with that, we will be done with episode 719 out of the Manapool. Let us know what your favorite, or least favorite, I guess in this case, status ailment is. Maybe, I feel like doing an episode on buffs won't be an episode, because it'll be like, yeah, you can raise stats, or make magic cheaper, or that's about it, isn't it? Yeah, that's about it. Make a punch harder. Make it takes less damage. Oh, yeah. There's not a whole lot for buffs, I don't think. Although I could be wrong. Let me know if there's a whole world of buffs out there that I'm not thinking of at the moment. But anyway, with that, we'll be done. So thank you all so very much for joining us, and be sure you have antidotes handy.